The B9.5 Audi S4. The last generation of S4 ever made. The car that has inspired so many car guys to give Audi a try. And in my opinion, the most underrated generation of S4. But is it worth the price? Is it a reliable German sports car? Does it stand up to the well-known BMW M340i? What about the C43 AMG? I've owned this S4 for well over a year now, and it's been my daily driver. Literally like every day. So I've gotten to experience what living with it is really like. In this video, I'll be summarizing the car's features, problems, and what daily driving with it really looks like. And hopefully, answering the questions mentioned and any questions you might have about how it would be to actually own one. The first thing I want to talk about is the daily driving experience of this car. Now this is a 3-liter turbo V6 that's punchy and really fun to drive. The daily drivability aspect of this car is honestly a 10 out of 10 for me. I have no complaints regarding driving this thing every single day. I mean, I love it. It's a great commuter car. It is a very fun sports car to drive. In comfort mode, it gets a lot quieter. It's very smooth and easy to live with. In sports mode, it really starts to wake up a little bit. You'll get louder exhaust and engine noises. The transmission will feel a little punchier, and it's really a pretty good significant difference between comfort and sports mode. This has 349 horsepower, powered by Quattro, and it also has a ZF8 transmission. Now the ZF8 transmission, from my experience driving this for a little over a year now, is very snappy when you want it to be, but also very smooth in comfort everyday driving. I will say that this version of the ZF8 isn't really the best or my preference of the ZF8. I wish would be a little more snappier. Stock Audi really did their best to give you a transmission that's going to be really good for daily driving, but also can live up to the standard for a sports car. Now the downside of that is that when it comes to the sports sides of things, I feel like it's a little slow and it's a little jaggedy when you're pushing it in sports mode. It's not very smooth as at least I would want it to be. When you're pushing it very hard, it doesn't shift as quick as I would want it to. With that being said, you are sacrificing that for a very smooth everyday driving experience. But for the car that it's placed in this S4, it fits really well. Even though the transmission may be a little laggy sometimes, the exhaust sound that this car produces is a pretty good note. Stock, I'm actually really happy with how it sounds stock. Obviously, a downpipe and a tune would really liven things up and help it, but for the way it sounds stock, I'm honestly really happy with what Audi did. In a little bit, I'll show you guys that I actually added an intake, which helps with some of the noises that this car makes. But driving this car every single day, you won't get bored of the sounds that it makes behind the wheel. Speaking about being behind the wheel, another thing I want to go over daily driving this car is I did notice that steering seems to be a little numb. It's not going to be as sporty as a BMW M340i. I wish it was a little more sharp. It definitely feels a little understeery sometimes, and you won't know exactly where your car is heading. It doesn't give you the best confidence, but luckily Audi does give you the option to change how stiff or soft your steering feel is. And so on my individual setting, which is what I use as my real comfort setting, is I have everything else on comfort, but my steering stiffness is on sport. Anything less than the sport setting, it feels way too light and you don't really feel in control of what's happening to the car. Now that's not to take away from how fun daily driving this car really is. When you put it into that sports mode, it really starts to wake up, like I said, and it's really fun to drive. It's really punchy with the low end torque, with the way that the turbo sits in the engine, and in sports mode you really feel in first and second gear how much it just wants to go. Now when rainy season starts to come around, that's when you really feel the confidence that this car really has. When I drove it for the few days that California does have rain, this car felt so confident and planted on the road. It felt amazing. It felt like you could take any turn at high speed and this car wouldn't lose any traction. I optioned this car with the S Sports package, which allows the car to send 50% of the Quattro power from the rear wheels to one wheel specifically, which allows for torque vectoring, which really helps with how confident this car feels and planted on those slippery, wet, and aggressive turns you're gonna be making. I would say in summary, daily driving experience of this car, just physically driving this car on the road, is a 9.5 out of 10. The only thing that I would change or have different about this car would be that the steering does feel a little numb, like I mentioned earlier. But on the road, this car feels planted, it feels smooth, the transmission is pretty snappy for what it is, and it's gonna give you the fun that you need and provide you the comfort that you want in an Audi as well. People see the numbers that the M340i or the C43 AMG have, and they think, oh, the Audi is the worst option out of those two, it's the slowest one. But when you really start to live with a car every single day, you're gonna really appreciate what the Audi S4 has to offer, which is a lot of things that those cars can't do, which I will be going over next.
The next thing I want to go over is the interior, the styling, and the comfort that it provides you for your daily driving. Now, without a doubt, this is one of my favorite features of the car, and this is one of the main reasons I actually chose this car over the C43 or the M340i, was because of the styling of the interior of the car and the comfort that it provides you. This is one of Audi's biggest selling factors, is what it gives you on the inside compared to its competitors. Daily driving and living with this thing is very easy. The seats are comfortable, you have adjustable bolstering which can just open up and let you relax or stiffen you up if you're going for a canyon run. It really puts you in your seat if you need it to. If you're having a long day after work or the gym, you have massage seats that really do pretty good of a job for how slim these seats look. The Apple CarPlay system in this S4, I would say, is almost flawless. I mean, once it connects, you're never gonna have some weird disconnect issue mid-driving, and it's honestly really good at connecting back to your phone whenever you're going in and out the car. When it's off and on, it connects pretty flawlessly and quickly, and it stays connected. Now, I think the diamond stitched red seats are the best looking out of all the other S4 competitors out there, whether it be the M340i or the C43 AMG or even the Alfa Romeo. I think that these Audi seats look the absolute best. I mean, I think Audi killed it with their diamond leather stitching. It just looks beautiful and comfortable. Now, build quality wise, I also think Audi killed it with the S4. After a year, I don't think I've heard any squeaks. I had nothing break, nothing start to chip. The steering wheel leather is fully intact. I originally already bought this car with the seats already beat up from the previous owner, but since then, they really haven't gotten that much worse. The leather is a good quality. Like I said, it's soft. All the little plastic pieces that they have inside the car are solid. They don't squeak. I mean, I could do this now for you. I mean, you literally don't hear anything squeak at all, creak, anything. It's all very solid. Audi killed it with the interior design quality of the S4. They didn't cheap out on any of the plastic products. As for space and practicality, I'm 6'2", and right now my front seat is currently in the position where it's my daily driving comfortable position. So as you see, I'm in the back seat here, and if I fully try to sit normally for a long car ride, my knees have just enough room to be comfortable for a long car ride. My head, if I stick all the way up, I mean, it basically just barely touches the roof. It's good enough to be comfortable, and it's very practical. Like I said, I'm 6'2", and it's pretty good for a long drive. I've had other passengers in the car before for drives with this thing, and they didn't have too many complaints for a long drive. So if you're someone who's planning on having a lot of passengers in your car, or just have a family that you need to drive around, I would say that Audi did a pretty good job with making sure this thing is pretty spacious. As if you didn't know, this S4 actually has a little more backseat room than the S5 does. Now, that's actually because the S5 gives you a little bit more room in the trunk than the S4 does. With that being said, I've had absolutely no complaints throughout my whole time of owning this car with the trunk space for the S4. I know a lot of people prefer the S5 because of the extra cargo space that you get with it, but in my opinion, the S4 gives you plenty of it. I carry a lot of things in my trunk day to day, and I'm constantly taking stuff in and out, groceries, camping stuff, Whatever you name it, I'm putting it in my trunk, and there's plenty of space for it. And I don't even think I've ever had a situation in which I don't have enough space in my trunk yet. And that's with this car fully loaded with 5 passengers and all of their items and belongings with them as well. This car is pretty spacious for what it is. Now, I also believe that the virtual cockpit of the car is very well designed. It has a lot of customizability. It shows you exactly what you want to see. There's a lot of things that you can change, and with the press of a button on the steering wheel, you can literally completely already change the way the car looks completely. There's a different modes in the settings of the car itself that can allow you to change how this looks, the way that the speedometer and RPM gauge can completely change. It really gives you a lot of customization, and I really appreciate it for the day-to-day driving. It allows you to switch it and keep things fresh constantly, a new look to it always, and it's really nice to have. Here's a quick example of what I was talking about. If you go into display and brightness, you go to the virtual cockpit, you can configure these sports, S performance, or dynamic versions of your virtual cockpit. If you press one of the modes and you click yes, change now, virtual cockpit just changed into a completely different look. You can even go into dynamic and change it once again. My preference is the S performance. I think it looks the coolest and gives me the best information, as you really want to know what your RPMs are most of the time. I love seeing my RPMs in as much clarity as possible, and this allows me to do so. I would say my overall summary for the interior daily driving aspect of the car and the features and the comfortability, I would say absolutely 10 out of 10. I'm really not even sure what I would change if I had the options to change something. I'm not sure that I really would. I absolutely love it. So now to talk about reliability, maintenance, and the cost of daily driving this thing and what it really takes to maintain and make sure everything is running properly. Now, the good news is that honestly, it's not that ugly to talk about because it is a very, very reliable car. Now, I have had some issues I've encountered throughout my time with the car, and I will speak about that in a moment, but in an overall sense, I would say that this car, if you're worried about being reliable as a daily driver or not, don't be worried about it, because as long as you maintain it properly, this car will purr like a kitten and it won't give you any major issues. In the time that I've owned this car, which like I said is being a little over a year now, I've driven around 15,000 miles on the car, and I've had to do 2 oil changes, and technically I haven't had to replace anything major just yet. This car's oil isn't going to cost you significantly more than any other German car. The liquid moly oil is going to be pretty standard. I mean, you're going to want to use a specific Volkswagen spec oil for the car, of course, but you are going to be paying pretty much a normal German car oil price. If you don't plan or you don't have the time to change the oil yourself, you can still find a car shop that will be able to change the oil for you for like $30. So you're really not spending an absurd amount of money just for changing the oil. I mean, it's pretty standard maintenance cost. Now, the reason why I say I technically haven't had to replace anything major for the car just yet is for one of 2 reasons. Number one, when I first test drove the car, I actually had the water pump go out on me. And since it was on my test drive for the car, the dealership replaced everything for me for free because I haven't actually purchased the car yet. So they needed to fix the car in order to sell it to anyone, whether I was buying it or not. So I was lucky enough that it happened on my test drive and it went out then. And since they replaced everything, I haven't had to deal with any issues with the car overheating since that time. But just so you know, it's not really specific to the Audi S4 with the water pump and all these plastic housings going out. This is a very common German car thing. German brands love to cheap out and reduce weight on their engine bays, and whatever products they can use to use plastic, they'll use it. Even if it means getting hot and melting, they'll do so. And unfortunately, the S4 is no stranger to that. Now, the second reason is I've technically encountered one of my features of my car not working, and in order to replace it or fix it, it would actually be very costly. I would have to replace the whole entire steering wheel itself. But it's not really a big enough of an issue to where the car doesn't really fully work anymore. And actually, the feature that is malfunctioning can still work here and there. It's kind of a long story, and it's something that I talked about on my previous video. So if you want to check that out and hear a little bit more of an explanation of what exactly I'm talking about, you can check that out. I'll link the video at the end of this video and in the description. But other than that, I honestly would say don't be afraid that this car is not reliable. This engine is really solid. A lot of the times you will hear people talking about their turbo going out on the S4 or some major crazy problem. But the problem with that is that there's always going to be some kind of a problem
with someone's car. No car is perfect. They're all prone to blowing up at some point. And they're going to be no different whether you choose the S4, the M340i, or the C43 AMG. You're going to hear stories about turbos blowing up on all of those cars. So it's not something that's just specific to the S4. If you ever hear someone talking about their turbo blowing up or transmission blow up or their engine, whatever you might hear, it's really not the case, at least specifically with the B9.5 S4. The B9.5 S4 is an upgrade in the motor wise than the B9 because they fixed the rocker arm issue that the B9 was having. This gave me a lot of confidence in order to actually buy this B9.5 S4 and daily drive it, because I know that they fixed the rocker arm issue and the B9.5 facelift, and it's really not an issue anymore. Now, speaking a little bit more about the daily driving costs of this car, right now I am getting around 15 to 16 miles per gallon on average. Now in the city, I would say that the miles per gallon is closer to like 10 to 11, which is really low. But this car has a really good highway miles per gallon. I can easily get up to 25 miles per gallon if I drive normally on the freeway, which, just so you know, if you end up buying this car, it is very hard to drive this car normally. It is a very fun car to drive. You're always gonna wanna be pushing the car to its limits or just doing some kind of a pull here and there. It's a really fun car, so that's why I'm personally averaging 15 to 16 miles per gallon, is because I would consider myself somewhat of an aggressive driver. But if you're a little bit more laid back and you're a little bit more concerned about the longevity of the car and you really tend to drive the car in comfort, you're definitely gonna be getting upwards of 20 miles per gallon on your daily drive. So moving on to some things that I love and hate about the car. Now, the things I love about it, a lot of the things I mentioned earlier. Number one, I think the car looks amazing. I think it does look better than the S5. It is a preference for me for the S4 than the S5. I mean, I just like the way it's shaped a little better. For me, it's shaped like a little rocket ship. I just love the styling, the corners, the aggressive or smooth angles that it might have. I just love it all. Also, as I mentioned earlier, I really do like how easy it is to live with. It really is so easy to get in and drive the car and not have to worry about anything. I mean, the car just does everything perfectly for you. The moment you get in and the moment you step out, you're not gonna have to worry about a single thing. There's so many specific things I could name that I love about the car. It would be a way too long of a list, but I'd rather focus on some of the things that I wish would be fixed or tweaked. I have somewhat of a love-hate relationship with the features that this car has. Now, I do love the features themselves. The only thing I have a problem with, and this is something I've also mentioned in the previous video, is how sensitive the features themselves are, or the fact that I can't turn off or on the features and they will stay that way. For example, the pre-sense feature of the Audi S4 is a little too sensitive for me. Sometimes it'll think a car is way too close to me and it'll slam my brakes for me when it definitely wasn't supposed to do that. In other cases, it has saved me before when I'm not fully paying attention to the road. So sometimes it'll save you, sometimes it'll slam your brakes for no reason. This is something I've talked about in a previous video. Now, to add on to that point, with the Audi pre-sense, if I turn it off, the car will turn it back on anytime I turn the car off and on again. So my other issue with that is all the little features that it has. If you turn those features off, if you dislike something about that feature and you turn it off, the next time you turn it on, it actually won't stay off. It'll turn right back on, and it's very, very annoying. Another small thing that I don't like about the car is just the range of the key fob. The range is very limited and very small. If you step more than 20 feet away from the car, it just automatically stops communicating with this key fob, and it's very inconsistent in when you will be able to unlock and lock the car. It kind of just sucks. I went over in depth in a previous video about all these things that I don't like about the car. You can check that out. I'll also link it down below. There's a bunch of things that I go in a little bit more detail than I have time to in this video. So you can feel free to go ahead and check those points out in a different video. But as a general consensus, I would say that none of those small annoyances are a deal breaker for if you're choosing to get this car or not. It's just something that happens to be an unfortunate con about the car. So what's my final verdict with the car? Would I get this S4 if I knew everything that I know now, having owned it for over a year? Honestly, I would say yes. It has really been amazing to own this car for over a year. None of the bad things that I've mentioned or the cons that I've mentioned were anywhere near bad enough to consider or think that I should have gotten a different car. It was never a big enough deal for me to think that this car sucks, because I would get behind the wheel of it and I would drive it again and I would fall in love with the car all over again. The S4 and S5 are meant for people who want as much sportiness as they can get out of an Audi without having to sacrifice the daily living luxuries and comforts that an A-Class would get you. And the S4 does a really good job of providing just that. So with that being said, if I had to recommend you getting this car for a long-term daily driver use, would I say yes? Absolutely so. I would say it is 100% worth buying this car as a daily driver. It's great. Like I mentioned earlier, there are so many great things about this car that make it such a fun daily driver experience and so easy to drive. But after owning this car for that year that I've owned it, I think it's time to finally spice things up, and I'm planning on giving this bad boy a little more juice, a little more power. So that's something I plan to do in the near future. I'm already working on what exactly I'm gonna do as for mods, and I will make a future video talking about what I plan to do and what I already have done to the car. So feel free to subscribe and tune in for what this S4 is really capable of doing. I hope you appreciated and enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.